let's talk about one of my personal favorite genres of games, shall we? The horde shooter. You know the ones. Your Left 4 Deads and your Deep Rock Galactics. But what was the first? I went on a little bit of a deep dive to discover that. My journey began one morning, this morning actually, with the thought of, what was the first horde shooter? Didn't turn out much. All I got was the fact that Gears of War coined the term horde mode back in 2008. So then I looked up, what was the first zombie horde shooter? That ought to give me something, right? No. All I got was the first zombie game. Something called Entombed on the Atari 2600 back in 1982. Again, not much. Thus, my search went deeper. Now, personally, I consider the Earth Defense Force, or EDF, games to be horde shooters. I mean, it's you and maybe a small group of friends against massive numbers of enemies. Sounds like a horde shooter to me. The first EDF game was called Monster Attack and was released on the PlayStation 2 back in 2008. I am sorry for turning around like that. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me there, but yeah. I need to move around a bit. ADHD and all that. So that's it, right? Case closed. We're done. We found the first. No, not exactly. If we're stretching the definition of horde shooter to the EDF games, then just because it features large amounts of enemies on screen at once, then what else counts? Well, there's the Dynasty Warrior games and their spin-off cinemators, but you don't shoot things in those games, do you? No. You stab, you hack, you slash. That's why it's a hack and slash game. Well, what about, on-rail shooters in arcades? Would you count those? I mean, some of them certainly count in my book, like Aliens Armageddon or House of the Dead. Plenty of enemies in those. But most of those kinds of games have you going up against smaller groups of people who have guns like you. So, not really sure you can count those in my book. And before you say anything about Payday, yes, I know they have guns, but they have the numbers to make it a horde shooter. Shut up. Then, as I was writing this script, I came to a realization. Shoot 'em ups. One of the first genres. The vertical, the horizontal. I just needed to figure out which ones came first. Was it the vertical or the horizontal? The up and down or the left to right? The x-axis or no, the y-axis or the x-axis? I get those confused sometimes. Shut up, I'm bad at math. Calm down, calm down. So, that led me down a whole different rabbit hole. For instance, the shoot 'em up genre can technically be traced back to the earliest of video games, with one of the first games being 1962's Space War. But that was a 2v2 game. Yeah, that's right. 1v1 me in Space War, bitch! Moving on. So, then I discovered there's all kinds of categories of shoot 'em ups. We got the fixed shoot 'em ups. Then I discovered the many different genres of shoot 'em up. We've got the fixed shoot 'em ups with things like Galaga and Space Invaders, multi-directional shooters like Asteroids and Max Planets, space shooters. That's 90% of the genre, my dude. Tube shooters, you know, the ones where you're in a tube. Sorry. Yeah, things like Tempest. Space shooters. No, wait, rail shooters. Fuck, I just talked about those. Shoot 'em ups, which it's its own thing, like Parodius. Parodius. Parodies. Motherfucker! Panorama Cotton and Harmful Park. Then we've got the scrolling shooters, and apparently that's its own thing. Vertically scrolling shooters like Galaxian, side-scrolling shooters with Gradius, fucking isometrically scrolling shooters. What? Calm down, JJ. Calm down. Calm. We're calm. We're calm. After that, we have run-and-gun games, which means we have to include Cuphead and Contra. And then there's the bullet hell games, which means we have to include Toho Project, and I'm not opening that can of worms. Do the bullets count as the horde? I don't know. I'm losing my mind. And apparently there's reverse bullet hells by the Gorgon. What is this? Why am I doing this? And lastly, trace shooters. Tempest 2000. Geometry Wars, Grid Runner. But no. None of those were the first, or the earliest. Shut up. No, we have to go back a bit. Let us go back to one of the most famous games of all time. Space Invaders. It's you, all alone in a limited area. A large group of enemies bearing down on you at once. The challenge getting bigger and hot and bigger as they get closer. Yes. This is the first horde shooter. April 1st, 1978 in Japan. This is where the horde shooter and the shoot 'em up was born. We found it. The first horde shooter. Space Invaders. Thank you.